Hey, Randy Joe here, and this is 1001 Reviews, a series where I plan on reviewing every single album from the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. And today we're looking at Jane's Addiction's 1990 album, Ritual de l'Habitual. Ritual de l'Habitual, released in 1990, was released under the Warner Brothers label, produced by Perry Farrell and Dave Jerden, with art direction from Perry Farrell as well, and Casey Nicolai. Nationality USA, and a running time of 51 minutes and 38 seconds. Now, having listened to this album straight through front to back about 5 times, I've come to the realization that this is quite a gem of an album. Its unique sound really makes it feel as if it exists completely within its own realm. Over the course of this near 1 hour runtime, you're thrown into this very zany, loud, and abrasive world that feels like if you took a mix of funk, metal, alt-rock, and psychedelic music and just crammed it all into 1 hour. It's such a confident blend of genres that it really does kind of stand on its own as something unique and masterful to look at. And I feel like Jane's Addiction is really underappreciated and underrated just for how inventive and creative they were over the course of their brief career. The opener of the album, Stop, is just an incredible way to kick off the album. Perry really showing off his vocals greatly on this track and just kind of soaring over the instrumentals in such a personality and ferocious filled way. All while he discusses the idea of the world just needing to stop and how he makes all these very sharp allusions to Noah's Ark and religion in general. We get songs of moral philosophy on this album as well, especially with the song Ain't No Right, a song that criticizes the idea of utilitarianism and good and bad, as these two are pretty subjective in Perry's eyes, as we as people cannot fully agree on what is good and what is bad objectively. Using an example, Perry suggests the idea of a bad wind coming along and destroying his house, whereas this seems like a bad thing on the surface and would to most people occur as a bad incident. He then further employs the idea that even though his house may have been destroyed by this wind, in its place, nature has come along and regrown and come back stronger than ever. So in some ways, this can be seen and perceived as a good thing by a lot of people, but maybe not to Perry, as he had lost his house. So the idea of good and bad is sort of tossed up back and forth throughout this song, because even though one thing seems bad to one person, it may in another way be good to another. There is no such thing as objective good and bad. So his criticism of this philosophy is pretty valid in the way that he kind of illustrates this picture. I think at the end of the day, what Perry is saying here is that there is no such thing as good and bad, and because of this, you can just do whatever you want and be whoever you want to be without a worry about it. And this idea is handled pretty well over the course of this 3.5-minute track, which is not something I could say for the next song that goes into philosophy, which is the song Obvious. A song that is filled with very vibrant guitars and a nice subtle bass line in the background, and Perry's personality really does come through strongly on the vocals here like they do throughout this entire album, but as he discusses philosophy a bit more loosely on this track, it ends up dragging far too long for just how little is being said. This song is nearly 6 minutes long, and I feel like you could shave off at least 2 minutes to make it a lighter and more direct track. And not that long songs are an issue. In fact, there are many long songs on this album, but this is one where I feel like it doesn't need to be as long as it is. And it's not even that much longer than most. It's only 6 minutes. But still, it is 2 minutes too long. But going on to another song that is incredibly long, it's the longest song on the album, is the song 3 Days, which is 10 minutes long, actually nearly 11, I should say. And this long, epic-scale track is a tale about a real-life event that occurred to Perry, in which he had this drug-induced 3-day threesome with his current girlfriend and ex-girlfriend at the time. And even though it has this strange subject matter that would normally seem not that appealing, the way it is handled instrumentally and vocally is really quite amazing over its 10 minutes. And I think really a great reason as to why it is so great for how long it is the way it plays with structure. It never feels like it is just one song. It feels like multiple songs kind of coming together quite fluidly. Pacing is just such an incredibly important thing to have when creating a long song such as this, and I think pacing is something that is very overlooked by most people, but there is a certain way to do it, and Jane's Addiction does it really, really well on this song. And I will be doing a video eventually on pacing one day, because it is something that I myself thoroughly enjoy in a song, and I think this is exactly what I mean. It never feels like it is dragging instrumentally, and Perry kind of changes up his vocals enough throughout its 11 minutes that it always just feels as if it is a constantly growing thing. And I really like at, for example, the 6.5-minute mark, it employs this very different sort of drumming while these revving guitars come along and Perry sings alongside these. They all collide together in a very smooth fashion and kind of revving up quite loudly before completely falling back and going for this more hushed and soft approach. Maybe sort of alluding to this orgasmic bliss of this threesome that him and his girlfriends are having. There is really just so much going on in this 11 minutes that it is just insane to me with how well it is handled. But after that, we have another lengthy song that is 8 minutes long called Then She Did, which is the most gentle song on here. At least you'll hear the most gentle passages on the album within this track. And it is about the loss and death of his ex-girlfriend, who we previously talked about in the previous song. And not only is it about his ex-girlfriend who passed away from an OD, but it is also about his mother who passed away when he was only 3 years old from committing suicide. So over the course of these 8 minutes, Perry parallels these two women in his life and the impact that they made on him. He talks about how they were both artists and they were both unhappy in their life, and in the end both decided to take their own lives. And the thing is Perry Farrell as a singer is, and I can't stress it enough, an amazing, incredibly underrated singer who deserves way more attention and praise for just how much personality and volume he's able to produce in these songs. And then finally, on the second last track, this album takes a very unexpected and strange turn with the song Of Course. And it's strange to me because the influences on the song are somewhat of a Indian origin, sounding very otherworldly and unique to Jane's Addiction's sound, which is already something that was pretty unique and original. Perry, again, sounding just as fantastic as he always does. I also really like this large banging drum that is carried throughout this song, as well as these chime effects, really adding to this circus or festival-like sound that is being employed here, further creating this very distinct and original tone that I was speaking of these otherworldly influences. So what I'm saying is that overall, this album manages to do so much so densely in its 1 hour runtime, and stands on its own as a very unique and incredible achievement, and one of the most underrated albums of the 1990s in my opinion. It leaves me feeling just overall super impressed and amazed at just how much Jane's Addiction manages to fly under the radar for a lot of people, despite the fact that they are just something of their own sound and style. So overall, this album's soft rating came to a 8.4 out of 10, and I will go ahead and harden that rating up to a 9 out of 10. And on top of that, I will give this an E for essential. Definitely an essential album because I think they are just that fantastic. This is a great album to listen to, and you really have nothing to lose to listen to it. It's about 50 minutes long. It's almost an hour, so yeah, it's a bit longer for some people, but it's a pretty fantastic and energetic album to really throw yourself into. And that pretty much does it for this video. So let's go ahead and see what the next album you're going to listen to is in the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. Alright, random number generator on Google, 1 to 1001, generate. 607 is the next album you're listening to, 607. 607 being Michael Jackson's Bad. That's right, Michael Jackson Bad. So give that a listen. That'll be exactly 1 week from now when that video comes out. And on Tuesday, I will have the review for Deep Purple's Deep Purple in Rock. If you like this video, please hit like and hit subscribe if you want to join me in listening to every album from the 1001 Albums to Listen to Before You Die book. And as always, this is Randy Joe signing off.